تفصيل 25 لازم. The translation would be, knowing 25 prophets in detail is necessary. كل مكلف, upon every mukallaf, فحقق واغتنم, meaning research these 25 prophets, and واغتنم, take benefit. Who are they? So the names of 25 prophets now. 25 prophets. Hum Adamu, Sayyiduna Adam alayhi salam. Here with Sayyiduna Adam alayhi salam, what becomes difficult for some people to understand is that they understand, for them it's possible that proteins self-replicated themselves. Self-replicating protein became cells, human cells, and then those cells replicated for millions of years until an organism developed, and then those organisms self-replicated until they became sea animals, and then those sea animals came out onto land, what we know as evolution theory. But what is defined as evolution theory, that makes sense to them, but it becomes impossible for them to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created a man and sent him down. This becomes rationally impossible for them. When we look at rational judgments, that would be something rational. That would not be something irrational, that the divine creator created the first human and sent him down. What would be irrational is for someone to believe that proteins, meaning even for a protein to develop, is something very difficult. But proteins became a self-replicating cell. Then the cell became an organism, and then the organism itself became multiple different types of organisms until later on humans developed. This, according to them, is more rational than just saying that a divine creator sent down the first human being. Some Muslims find this so difficult to make compatibility between this evolution theory and the dispatching of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam. They attempt to make a new theory, which is Awadim qabla Adam, which there were numerous Adams before Adam alayhi salam, meaning inferior species, ancestors to Adam alayhi salam, that eventually led to the culmination of the superior species Adam alayhi salam. They call this Awadim qabla Adam, that there were Adams before Adam alayhi salam. Why would they want to believe in this? Because the outward understanding of the story of Adam alayhi salam in the Quran is difficult for them to process, when in reality it makes more rational sense. So this is something that people should be aware of. So Adamu Idrisu, Sayyidina Idris alayhi salam. With Sayyidina Idris alayhi salam, he was the first person to bring knowledge of mathematics onto earth. And it is stated that the pharaohs of Egypt were able to make the pyramids with the knowledge of Idris alayhi salam. There are names for Idris alayhi salam in Egyptology also. If you do research on this, there are names. The name Idris is from Dara, meaning Darasa is to study. So the very name means to study. He was the first person to make a pen, and the first person to start reading and writing, Sayyiduna Idris alayhi salam. Then Sayyiduna Nuh alayhi salam. Many of the scholars are of the opinion that Sayyiduna Nuh alayhi salam lived in the Mesopotamian region, which is in Iraq today, meaning where what some have termed as being the cradle of civilization, the Babylonian region. The Babylonian region, they say Sayyiduna Nuh alayhi salam lived in that region. Some of the scholars are of the opinion that the flood was not global. The flood was only in that region because human beings only resided in that particular region at that time. Because they only resided within that particular region, the flood only occurred in that region. But even if someone takes the opinion that the flood was global, does this contradict fact? The answer is no. The archaeologists today claim that when they dig through the different layers, they cannot find the signs of a global flood. But their observations may be incorrect. I mean, by digging a certain layer of the earth, it does not negate a global flood or the majority of the earth being flooded. Hudun ma'an Salihin. So Sayyiduna Hud alayhi salam and Sayyiduna Salih alayhi salam. These are two prophets that were sent to ancient Arabia. Ancient Arabia is before Sayyiduna Ibrahim alayhi salam. Meaning, these prophets were sent to Ad and Thamud. Ad and Thamud were civilizations that lived in the Arabian Peninsula and also in modern day Jordan. So if you go to modern day Jordan, in modern day Jordan, you have the Petra Valley. The Petra Valley, if you go into the Petra Valley and you observe the homes, it is as if the homes were carved by laser, meaning someone came with laser and carved in the homes. Of course, they were not carved in by laser. The people they made the homes with advanced technology of their times. But Sayyiduna Hud alayhi salam and Sayyiduna Salih alayhi salam were sent to these nations, Arab nations. They were Arabian nations.
Were they really giants?
No, there's no proof to show that they were giants. There's no proof to say that they were giants. So, Hudun ma'a Salih. Salih alayhi salam was an Arab prophet. Wa Ibrahimu. Sayyiduna Ibrahim alayhi salam originated from Iraq, but is the father of the Arabs from which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam descended. So there were two types of Arab. There were the Arabs that existed before Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the second type were those who came after Ibrahim alayhi salam, who were the descendants of Ismail alayhi salam. Kullun muttaba'. Each one of these is followed. Then Lutun. Now Lut alayhi salam was the nephew of Ibrahim alayhi salam. They both migrated together to Syria. Lut alayhi salam then went and dwelled in a village which was near where today the Dead Sea is located. So when he dwelled there, the people were homosexuals, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sodomites, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed them. When he overturned the village, the town, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pelted them. That region is the Dead Sea today. The Dead Sea. So underneath the Dead Sea is the dwellings of the Qawm of Lut alayhi salam. Even though Lut alayhi salam was not from that region originally. And the story is mentioned in the Quran. Before the angels went to the town, they went and met Sayyiduna Ibrahim alayhi salam. So they were contemporaries. Then Ismail alayhi salam, the son of Ibrahim alayhi salam, who first resided in Makkah al-Mukarramah, who in fact inhabited Makkah al-Mukarramah after, remember the Kaaba was initially made by Sayyiduna Adam alayhi salam and then rebuilt by Sayyiduna Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ishaq alayhi salam, the brother of Ismail alayhi salam, who resided in Canaan, which is in occupied Palestine today, Canaan. Kaza Yaqub alayhi salam then was the son of Ishaq alayhi salam, the father of Yusuf alayhi salam. Yusuf alayhi salam, the story of him is mentioned. He's mentioned once in Surah to Yusuf, the entire chapter, and then he's mentioned elsewhere once in the Quran. His story is well known. Wa Ayyub alayhi salam in the Quran is in the Bible is referred to in the English Bible as Job. But Job, the word Ja, meaning in English they have for some reason they translate Ya into J. So Yehovah. So Job is Ayyub, Sayyidina Ayyub alayhi salam. And as I mentioned already, that the narrations that mention he had such type of illnesses that were repulsive, all these narrations are incorrect. Shu'aib, Sayyidina Shu'aib alayhi salam is the father-in-law of Musa alayhi salam. So Musa alayhi salam came after. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam is from the offspring of Ishaq alayhi salam, and he came after all these prophets that are mentioned. Shu'aib alayhi salam was an Arab, but he lived in Jordan. And Harun, so it says Harun wa Musa, Sayyidina Harun and Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, these two were brothers, and the story of Musa alayhi salam is well known. Wal Yasa' Dhul Kifl, these are prophets that resided in Syria. In fact, the grave of Sayyidina Dhul Kifl alayhi salam is located on Mount Qasiyun. I lived next to the grave for 2 years. So where my house was located, around 20 meters away was the grave of Sayyidina Dhul Kifl alayhi salam. Dawood Suleiman Taba'. So after Musa alayhi salam, Dawood alayhi salam came. The story of Dawood alayhi salam killing Goliath occurred. This was when the Bani Israel had dominance over the region of Palestine. And then Suleiman alayhi salam rebuilt Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, because the first masjid to have been made was the masjid in Makkah al-Mukarramah 40 years after Adam alayhi salam made the masjid al-Masjid al-Aqsa. But then the person to remake or rebuild the masjid in Makkah al-Mukarramah was Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the person to rebuild al-Masjid al-Aqsa was Sayyidina Suleiman alayhi salam. And today the Zionists are attempting to rebuild the temple of Solomon on al-Masjid al-Aqsa, when in reality al-Masjid al-Aqsa is the masjid that Suleiman alayhi salam, meaning it's the current building that exists was made by the Mamluks, the Mamalik kings. So we're not saying that that structure is the same, but there is no need to replace the masjid, because that masjid is the continuation of the masjid of Suleiman alayhi salam, even though through the history it was destroyed a few times. So in the after Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, it was destroyed 70 years after Isa alayhi salam ascended. Then when the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went on the night journey, what he visited was the remnants of the masjid. So the masjid, the remnants of the masjid still remained, the site remained. The Romans did not rebuild on the site, they left the site. So when the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went, the walls and the structure, some of it was still there. Then when Sayyidina Umar radiallahu an conquered Al-Quds al-Sharif, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu an had the structure rebuilt. And then this continued from king to king, from Khalifa to kings, then the Mamalik, the Mamluks. So in the time of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, he was before the Mamluks. There was a structure. Then the current structure with the gold dome on the dome of the rock was made by the Mamluks. And the Mamluks were also the first kings to have made a blue dome over the grave of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a blue dome. Then the Ottomans, Uthmaniyun, the Khilafah Uthmaniyya, they had the green dome made over the blue dome. So the blue dome still exists. If you go underneath the green dome, there is a blue dome. Ilyas, Yunus, Zakaria, Yahya. So Sayyiduna Ilyas alayhi salam, Sayyiduna Yunus alayhi salam was swallowed by a huge whale, most likely a blue whale, a large fish. And then he stayed in the stomach of the belly, the stomach of the whale or the huge fish. And then when he was placed on the shore, he was placed under the shade of the yaqeen plant. Yaqeen plant is the pumpkin plant, under the leaves of the pumpkin plant. Why the pumpkin plant? Because the leaves of the pumpkin plant, yaqeen, is good for the skin. So if someone is in the stomach of a whale for days, the acids of the animal will affect the skin. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained that Sayyiduna Yunus alayhi salam is placed on the beach, and the beach had yaqeen plants, pumpkin plants growing everywhere. if you remember as children, sometimes if you would fall into nettles, they would call them stingers. If you fell into nettles, what would grow next to the nettles? There's a leaf that would grow next to them which they call duck leaf. You get the leaf and you rub the leaf onto your skin, the itching from the nettles would finish. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed with the nettles the cure for humans when they fall into the nettles. Of course, atheists would believe this by coincidence, but a believer would know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed for human beings that the nettles are there. If you fall into the nettles, right next to the nettles is the plant. You unpluck the plant, meaning the leaf, you rub the leaf onto your skin. Likewise, the yaqeen plant, meaning the pumpkin fruit or vegetable, has a leaf that is good for the skin. So Yunusu Zakaria, Sayyiduna Zakaria alayhi salam was the guardian of Sayyidatuna Maryam alayhi salam, and he lived in Al-Masjid al-Aqsa. So the structure of Al-Masjid al-Aqsa was rebuilt. Remember, it was at one point destroyed by the Babylonians. The Babylonians had destroyed Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, but then it was rebuilt when the Bani Israel resettled. But when they resettled into Al-Aqsa, in the Al-Quds al-Sharif, they were not able to have a state of their own. They have never had a state from the time when it was destroyed, meaning the masjid was destroyed by the Babylonians. So from that time until today, meaning now with the illegal settlement of the state of Israel, this is the first time they have a state. So this is promised in Al-Quran Al-Kareem in Surah Bani Israel. Read the first 10 verses of Surah Bani Israel, chapter number 17 of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us regarding this. So Sayyiduna Zakaria alayhi salam, then Sayyiduna Yahya alayhi salam, his son, who was an ascetic, Sayyiduna Yahya alayhi salam, but the cousin of Sayyiduna Isa alayhi salam. So the author mentions Zakaria, Yahya, Isa. Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam has ascended, has not died, was not crucified, but will return in the end of times. This is an essential belief of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. وَطَاهَ خَاتِمٌ. So Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, one of his titles is Taha. The author states Khatimun, he is the finality of prophets. Da' ghayya, meaning leave any misguidance. Alayhim as-salatu was-salamu wa alihim ma damat al-ayyamu, and upon their family as long as the days remain. Meaning these are the 25 prophets that a person should know by name and something about them, something of their biographies. Of course, there are certain people in the Quran that are mentioned, but their prophethood is unknown, like Sayyiduna Dhul Qarnayn alayhi salam. There's a dispute whether he was a prophet or not. Sayyiduna Hijri alayhi salam and Sayyiduna Luqman alayhi salam. So there's a dispute. Different scholars have different views regarding this.